I've learned a lot about myself since moving to New York because I got pushed out of my comfort zone and just like learning how to make friends as an adult, learning how to like navigate working in like 30 Rock and like working with other adults, like just those experiences that you don't get when you're in college.
That was this week's guest, Sierra Hoeger. Sierra is 25 and based in Brooklyn, New York. We both grew up in the same town and went to school together all the way from kindergarten through senior year. To say catching up with her was a pleasure is an understatement, especially after her path last several years. In 2022, she landed her dream job at NBC Universal, working for The Today Show. On this week's episode of I Don't Know About You, Sierra and I discussed the mindset that helped her get internships, move to New York City, and ultimately land her job at Today. I'm Kyle Cozumar, and this is I Don't Know About You. Hi, Sierra. Welcome to I Don't Know About You. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hi, Kyle. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So for those that don't know, let's give just a little bit of background. Can you just share like a little bit about like who you are, where you're from, and like a little bit about what you do?
Yes, so I'm Sierra. I just turned 25 this past month. I currently live in Brooklyn, New York, and I work at NBC for the Today Show, for their e-commerce franchise. It's called Shop Today. But I'm originally from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, where we went to elementary school together. Like, we've known each other since elementary school.
Like
So
kindergarten all the way through, guys. like
literally, like I have like this is sidetracking, but I have like a vivid memory of like calling you and playing Webkins together. Like I
Oh
don't know
my
if you
god, like
remember that,
literally, yes.
but I literally remember calling you on the phone and playing Webkins together because like Webkins didn't have like a chat feature. But yeah, for
That's
the
so
people who
funny.
care, that's how Kyle and I know each other. But yeah, from Cedar Rapids, born and raised there, went to college at Iowa State, and then literally 3 weeks after graduating, I moved out here and started my job, and I've been here ever since. So I'm like creeping up on 3 years in May. So
Wow. Also just super cool. Like I feel like New York is just like such a fun and we'll get into it, but such a fun place like for like that era of your life.
yes, yeah,
Did you know that this is like where you were going to end up like at all?
absolutely not. The first time I had visited New York, I was 9 years old, and my one of my aunts had lived out here, and she
Mhm.
was getting married. So we had taken a family vacation out here, and I had never been to a big city before. I don't even think my family had gone to like Chicago at that point in my childhood yet.
Mhm.
And I was there like with my entire family, and we did like all the touristy things like Times Square, Statue of Liberty, Natural History Museum, everything like that. And I was just so in awe and like just fell so in love with New York City. And then the next time I had visited was I was a senior in college, and I was interning for a magazine whose two headquarters are in Des Moines and New York, and I was interning for the New York location. So they had like flown me out and invited me to work out there for like a week because otherwise I was remote. Um and it was like on that trip where I went with my mom, and I was like, that was kind of like the first time where I was like, oh, this is like realistic. Like I could actually live out here and like work out here, and like this could be my everyday versus like me just visiting for a week. And so when I was job hunting, all my like I put a lot of eggs into the New York basket. I won't say I put
Totally.
all my eggs in the New York basket because I applied for some jobs in the Midwest, just kind of like a backup safety net kind of thing. And then yeah, it wasn't until journalism moves really fast too. Like it's a really fast paced industry regardless, but then also in like the hiring process is really fast. So I was encouraged not to apply for jobs until spring break my senior year, which as like a type A planner person kind of like stressed me out. I
Totally.
was like watching all my engineering friends sign offers for their jobs in October, and the fact that I didn't start applying until like mid-March, and then I got my job late April, and then I moved out here Memorial Day weekend. So
Wow.
it was such a quick turnaround, and I had only visited New York 2 times prior to moving out here. So I don't know, New York just it got me. I got bit by the bug, and I fell in love with it kind of immediately. And I was just like, and of course, like I in like high school and college, I watched Friends, I watched Seinfeld, I watched
Right.
Sex and the City. Like they romanticize the heck out of it, and I don't know, it just made me be like, I kind of want to check it out for myself. So here I am.
Well, nice. Super exciting. So every single episode, I ask every guest the exact same question when we start. If you could go back and talk to your younger self when you started your journey before you moved to New York, maybe even like before you like really got into like journalism and went through college, what advice would you give yourself?
I think I would tell myself to relax a little bit, be a little bit more go with the flow. Like I had mentioned, I'm a very type A planner. I love control. I'm an eldest daughter, older sister. Like I feel like everything is just like stacking up and like adding up to like why I'm a type A person. It like all makes sense when you break it down. But I've had a lot of people in my life, and especially like living out here, that have taught me how to be more go with the flow. And it's like, newsflash, everything is still okay when you're go with the flow.
Totally.
So in some aspects of like my high school and college days and even early days post grad, I wish I would have been more go with the flow, especially in those areas where it's like not necessarily needed to be like a planner type A. But yeah, I think that's the one little piece of advice I'd give myself, is be like, it's all gonna be okay.
Like
All
life will take care of you. Things are
yeah,
going to
yeah,
happen. It's all going to fall into place. Yeah,
right. It'll
totally.
all work out the way it's supposed to. Just trust.
For sure. Let's go back in time a little bit. How did you first get into writing? And like, was there a moment that like it really connected for you that like this would be like your career or like something that you really wanted to like go after?
Yeah. So growing up, I loved to read. Like loved to read, was reading like anything I get my hands on. Like honestly, like whether it was like the highlights magazines and Harry Potter, or like in middle school and high school, like that was like Teen Vogue and then actual Vogue and like Cosmo, and like just devouring anything that I could get my hands on, like magazine or like Bookwise or anything. And my language arts classes were like always my strongest classes. Like getting a 5 on the AP test, like just always like just those were the classes that I really excelled in. But I feel like at my core value was like, I want to help people. I want to like, that was just something that was really important to me. And I didn't know how that could happen with reading and writing. So journalism didn't really like for me until I was part of like our high school's newspaper. And I remember just going so hard into like, I want to do healthcare, I want to do science, I want to do all this. But those were like historically like my worst classes. Like I was so passionate about them, but something about that just didn't translate to like earning good grades in those classes. And then it wasn't until our like my high school newspaper teacher, Mr. Preston, had like really like expressed to me the importance of journalism. And like really, like I remember we just had a sit down talk one day, and he was like, journalism helps people every single day. Like, why do you, like, in high school, when I would wake up in the morning, I would watch the news. So weird. But I would, like, have my coffee and, like, watch the news. And he'd be like, why do you watch the news? Like, the news is helping you every single day. Like, you can give a voice to the voiceless and, like, really help spread, like, information out into the world and everything like that. So it wasn't until senior year of high school that I, like, determined my, like, major and, like, was like, oh, I want to, pursue journalism and major in journalism and everything like that. But I don't know why it like hadn't clicked before. Like as soon as like everybody around me was like, girl, like do journalism, I was like, duh, like that makes so much sense. Like those
Yeah.
best classes. I literally remember like my mom still has a copy of it somewhere, but I literally remember, do you remember Miss Carey from
Yes.
Grant? I literally one time I like wrote a book and I gave her a copy, and she like came to my high school graduation and she was like, I still have your book that you wrote me like
Oh
in
my
second.
God.
And I was like, that is so crazy. Like I should have known at that point that like I wanted to write for a living. Like why didn't I? I don't know. It just took me a little bit longer to realize it. But like since then, since I was a senior in high school and like declared my major and like was in college, loved all my classes. Like there was not one journalism class that like I genuinely disliked. Like this is just what I was meant to be doing.
No, for sure. And like you make such a good point. Like I feel like unfortunately, especially right now, like I feel like journalism is so important. Like as
Yes.
like things are happening politically, things
Yes.
are just like
Oh,
everything's like
walk that
yeah.
road.
Oh
I
yeah,
could.
yeah. We'll keep it a little bit more focused. But yeah, no, I think like journalism, like I feel like we've seen like whether it's like, crime related stuff, like, elevating those stories, or like, letting people know, like, what's going on politically, like in the moment. Like, I think journalism, like, yeah, without it, like, we're just in a world of disinformation. And
Yeah.
yeah. What did your path actually look like as far as like the first real world writing experiences? Like, how did you go about like landing those first opportunities,
Yeah.
and what did they really look like?
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting because the first times that like we were getting like internships or kind of like getting our foot in the door, it was COVID. So it was kind of just like, I don't know. I also like on the other side of the coin, like I'm a self-starter. Like I love like taking the initiative myself. So like all my internships, I didn't really apply. I like reached out to the people and I was
Mm,
like, hey, I kind of want to work here. Do you guys have summer internships?
that's like so important, and like the way to do it though, because it's all
Yeah,
relationship based. Like when you get out into the real world, like,
exactly. It literally is like nowadays becoming who you know and not like what you know, which like in journalism it's a little bit of both. Like you gotta know what you're
yeah.
doing kind of. But like it really is like who you know. And my first internship was for the Cedar Rapids Gazette and it was in 2021 and I was like, "Hey, I'm coming home anyways. Like I'm looking for jobs in the Cedar Rapids area. I'm from Cedar Rapids, so I already have like that knowledge, but like also I had worked for Iowa State's newspaper all 4 years of college or like three leading up to that point. So I was like, I'm really knowledgeable in like print journalism, have an emphasis in newspapers, like would love to be an intern for you guys this summer. And like I think I had reached out in like over Christmas break, so like kind of early on. Um but that was like really my first like boots on the ground doing the work. And it was that I credit to being one of my most like that was such a true like learning experience and it taught me what I didn't want to do. Which also like those internships are needed. Like those experiences are very much needed because
Totally.
I had put all of like my time and energy in pursuing newspaper journalism at like the college level and never really like experienced it at a real world type of level. And so after having that experience, I was like, okay, I kind of want to focus on something a little bit different, a little bit like slower paced, a little something that's like not gonna, there wasn't such a good like work like life balance.
Mm.
And but then again on the other side of that coin, it taught me so much about journalism and like I now know how to like operate under like fast-paced things. I now know how to like tackle some topics with like a little bit of like sensitivity. I had shadowed the crime and courts reporter all summer long,
Mm.
so getting to go to like the courthouse, they're like downtown and like report on all these issues with kind of like a level of sensitivity, but then also being like, okay, here's what people like need to know type of thing. That just taught me a lot. And like that internship opened my eyes to a lot of things in like my hometown and it made me fall in love with Cedar Rapids a lot more too.
And I think it's also really important, like early on, to like have those experiences to teach you what you don't want. Like,
Yeah.
because like I remember like early in my career, like I was like doing a lot of like social stuff, like with like Instagram and TikTok, and it's like I can't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do that all day. So like
Yeah.
totally like hear you there. Were there any other things that like really felt like you couldn't have like learned that from like a college course, like you had to like learn it like
Mhm.
out in the real world, whether it was at your internship at the Gazette or any other like early experiences?
I think all the extracurriculars I was in college really taught me how to like manage my time, like have a lot, truly a lot on my plate. It's literally those cliches where you're like, I don't know how I woke up and like had 12-hour days and did everything and was like a sane human being. Like nowadays, you will find me in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. Like, I don't know how I did it, but like really like balancing a lot of extracurriculars on top of homework and just like being social with my friends and like making sure to have fun because I was in college, like those types of things I feel like really set and being able to like do all of them intentionally and like not like half-ass. It translated well into now like my job. Like how to do things really intentionally and like not half-ass stuff. Like and now I have way less on my plate. So I feel like being really involved in college and like soaking it up because I knew I could be. And like that was the time when I was going to be in clubs and like make friends and be really involved in just like like, when else are you going to just like stack your resume? It was my
Right.
like thought process through it all. Like, there's no other time when I could work for a newspaper, a student magazine, a philanthropic like organization, like do all that stuff and have it all like make sense and have it all like tie into my major and like my interests. So I feel like that, and it also just like gave me like just a wide range of skills to have on my resume that made me more applicable in like the job hunting process, or like made me more of like a viable candidate, I guess, in the job hunting plot.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I liked what you were saying about like it taught you time management on just like how to like actually prioritize and like make time for everything. Cause like I could imagine like being in New York, like there's always things going on. Like you want to be like doing all the things, but like
Yeah.
also making sure that like, you know, early on in your career, you're like still not half-assing, full-assing your career. That's not really something that like I feel like I hear people think about like with their college experience is just like resume stack as much as possible. Like
Yeah.
it this is the part of the story where it makes sense to do all the things.
Right, right. Like, I don't think there was one area, like, it's always so funny. Like, I feel like I have so many different, like, friend groups from college, and, like, none of them, like, know each other. So, like, one year I just threw, like, a big birthday party, and it was, like 25, like, random people from, like, all my different friend groups, where it was, like, the newspaper, the magazine, dance marathon, and then, like, my roommates and, like, our friends from our apartment building. And I was like, none of you guys know
Worlds
each other.
collide.
I was like, this is such a hodgepodge of people, but like, have fun. Like, meet someone new. Like, if you didn't meet someone new, you failed at my birthday party. I was so sorry.
No, for sure. I went to a birthday party last year or the year before that was like bring a rando, and it was
Oh
like
my gosh, that's so fun.
it was so fun because it was like I didn't know anyone anyway, and then we like brought someone that
Yeah.
like didn't belong in the group, and like I don't know, it was just super fun. And like
Oh, that
you get
is
to
fun. And like, that's fun as like adults too, because it's like, it literally is like that like kindergarten classroom type of thing. Like, you're going to be friends with anyone and everyone. Like, it doesn't
right.
matter. So that's fun.
Totally. Going back to just like thinking about like how your resume stacking and like all the things in college, do you feel like that was a time where you were going more with the flow or like actively chasing like the specific opportunities?
The one thing about me is like, I love my routine. Like, if you know me, you know I have a routine. And I feel like that's something about me that's never changed. Like, high school, college, now I'm gonna have a routine. And in college, I feel like my weekdays were very like regimented. Like, I knew what like, Monday I had this club meeting, Tuesday morning CrossFit, Thursday this, Wednesday, like, it was very regimented. You could always, if someone wanted to stalk me, they could. Like, I was doing the same thing every single week at the same exact time. Like, if someone wanted to buy, they could. And then I feel like my weekends were very sporadic, very go with the flow, very like spontaneous, which I feel like that's a balance that I've kind of kept to now, unless like I'm hosting people or like we actually have plans. I feel like there's this influencer that I follow, and she does planless Saturdays. I've like taken that to heart, where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna go to a random neighborhood, go to a coffee shop, and like see where the day takes me, like stuff like that. And I feel like those days I've become like more appreciative of. But no, yeah, I feel like my weekends are more when I'm like, what are we gonna do today? Let's be spontaneous. Let's do this. But like my weekdays, I love like taking slow and being in my routine to kind of like set myself up for success. I don't know.
Totally.
It makes sense over here.
No,
What?
but like as a type A person, like did it feel like going against like your own personal grain like when you first started that? Because like I feel that like
Yeah.
super hard.
Like it's like, okay, like I know if I like want to have like, which also like if people are not type A and they're like listening to this, they're probably gonna be like, oh my gosh, like go like break the rules one time, I beg of you, whatever. But it's like, I know what I need to do within a day to like not like go crazy. Like, I know I need to work out or like get a little sweat in, like have an out, like that's my outlet for
Yeah.
like anything, like work out a little bit. And like I like to have slow nights. Like, I love to make dinner at home. I love to like basically anything that's against the hustle and bustle of whatever is outside
Right.
my door. Like, I just love to take it slow. I love to have my routine and like set myself up for success for like the next work day. But then, like, on a Friday night, yeah, my friends and I are going out until midnight, 1 a.m. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. So,
No, it's just different modes, you know? Like
yeah, yeah.
um I think last thing just on like thinking about like early career with you, what do you think college didn't teach you that you wish you would have known, like, going into your career?
I wish, honestly, and I think it has to do with COVID, I wish I would have had more of those kind of like not peer to peer like relationships. I wish I would have had more kind of like superior relationships that wasn't a professor. Because, like, obviously, I was very close with my professors, and like, naturally, they're going to be your superiors or like kind of take on like that, like, manager kind of like role. But I
Yeah.
wish, like, the clubs that I was in, I wish kind of like, and because my internships were remote, I didn't really get a whole lot of that kind of like managerial aspect. And I know like not everybody's going to get that in college, like, but I feel like ours was kind of unique where it was like it was in COVID, so a lot of people, you do have a summer internship and you have a manager and you have somebody who like checks in with you all the time. And while I did have that, I didn't get to experience it in the way that I would at my first
Right.
postgrad job that I am nowadays.
Because you graduated in 22, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like working on a team that's like not full of peers who are
Mhm.
also in college, who also have, you know, like the same excuses I do, where it's like, oh, I had homework, oh, I had this, oh, I went out with my friends. Like, these are people who have children, these are people who have like actual, like, not to diminish our responsibilities in college, but like they're working to provide for their family. I'm
No.
working to, like, I don't know, like, I'm not
Yeah.
working to provide for a family. But yeah, all that to say, I wish I would have had just kind of on top of my like peer to peer relationships in like clubs. Like, we were managing each other. Like, what business did I have as a senior managing a sophomore? I don't know. But like, I wish I would have had like more of those kind of managerial relationships in college.
Yeah. What did mentorship actually look like outside of like professors? Who were your
Yeah,
mentors at the time?
just other students, other people who were in grades older than me. I really like, I'm a big like people person, and I love to be like super intentional with those types of relationships. And so a lot of them actually I'm still friends with today, and a couple of them live out in New York, and like we go get
That's
happy hours
awesome.
sometimes, and like we're all like still in journalism, which is fun. So like sometimes we bump into each other at like events and stuff like that, which is super fun. But a lot of it was just like students who are older than me, and like a lot of people who I worked with at like the Iowa State Daily. Like, I know I'm like that kind of like mentor to them now, which is super fun to see. But yeah, it was just like students who were older than me. And I was like, oh, you look like you know what you're doing. I'm going to follow your lead. I want the internship you had last summer, like, that type of stuff.
Once you like started moving into your career, what do you think the first like major like I made it kind of milestone was?
I think it was whenever I had like my first published story. Like, whenever I had my first published story that was like live on the Today Show like website, and like we have this like database where you can like see how many people are like active in your story, and it's like
Yeah.
just to see like that number keep climbing. That was super fun. And then this past March I got promoted to where I was working on more of like our broadcast articles. And so like to have those like go out, like go off like without a hitch, but then also like to see like just thousands of people like in my stories, like that was insane. That was just truly insane. So I think that was like my first kind of like this, or like to have people send my own stories to me and be like, oh, I just Google searched this and your story popped up. And I was like, that's crazy that like my grandma's friend from high school is like what, like reading my stories.
Well, like also, does it ever like is it a pinch me moment? Like you work for Today. Like
Yeah.
there was like a show that like was on every single morning, like when we were
Yes,
growing up. Like, how does it
exactly.
feel?
It feels really good. Like it's just like I'm, and like I don't mean to sound like, I don't know, on my high horse when I say this, but like,
No, but please do. Like
oh, like I'm just like so proud of myself.
we've talked about how you have the job at Today and you moved to New York City. What was like the transition? What was it like, making that transition? Were you in Des Moines at the time, like Ames, Des Moines, and
Yeah,
then
I
moved
was
to,
in
yeah.
Ames. Yeah. And like I had mentioned, it was a very quick turnaround period. So literally, I had to move out of my Ames apartment the weekend that I graduated, or like the weekend after or something. And then I moved home for 2 weeks. And then Memorial Day weekend, I moved out here.
Wow.
Like, it was me, my mom, and 4 suitcases. And it all kind of like, it was all so like, it all happened in a way where I was like, I was meant to be out here. Like, I was meant to be out here in New York because my one of my like I was like worried about housing. My parents were like, we might just have to get an Airbnb at first and like ride it out until you can find somewhere to stay, or like we were just going all in on like trying to find me an apartment. And a friend sends me this DM of a girl that we had gone to college with, but she was just a mutual friend, and she was like, hey, I'm like subletting my apartment in Brooklyn for the summer. And my parents were like, do it, take it, and once the end of the summer comes, we'll, you'll be more familiar with
Just
New
get
York,
some time in, like, yeah.
figure it out, but like take that, like we're in too much of a crunch time for you not to. And it was super cheap. It was less than $1,000 a
Oh,
month for the summer.
wow.
Like, do it, literally just do it. So I move into this girl's room. She has 3 other roommates. Literally, the day I move in, one of the other roommates goes, I'm moving out at the end of the summer. You can have my room.
Oh my
And
God.
I was just like, I'm doing that. I'm moving 5 feet down the hall rather than finding another like spot. So like that alone, I was just like, that made it so easy. I had 3 built-in friends already in this girl's roommate. And now that girl, Annie, when she moved back in, we just this past summer moved. Like it's just me and her now.
Oh,
So like
nice.
now I have like still a built-in best friend in her. And Annie also is from Iowa, went to Iowa State, moved out here for grad school. Like she knew what I was going through, which made it so easy, but that she was gone that whole first summer. So like I didn't have her shoulder to like lean on for support that whole first summer. And it was a lot. Like as I had mentioned before, I get homesick super easily. Not so much anymore now that I've like
You're
spent some
established a bit. Yeah.
yeah. And like now I know of like different like coping mechanisms or like and stuff like that in my little like toolbox. But yeah, it would be a lot of days just like, it was just like the beginning of college. Like, and my mom had like really driven home. She'd be like, in college, she'd be like, go get lost on campus on purpose. So you like find your way around. So you like bump into somebody, make a new friend, stumble in somewhere. You could find your new favorite coffee shop, your new favorite whatever. So that's what I would do a lot in the beginning is like get myself lost on purpose and like find a new neighborhood, find a new bookstore, find a new restaurant that I like. And I had a lot of visitors that first summer, which made it super easy to just kind of explore and like get to know the city. And my first summer I was here, we were still at work, we were still like on a fully remote schedule.
Mhm.
And so that kind of like made it easy also just to like ease into the post grad work life. And then that fall, it got a lot easier to kind of be like, okay, I'm here. I made it as we started like going into the office more often. But like my parents and like my good friend Breck, like they can attest, like every other day they'd be getting phone calls of me like crying, like, why did you let me move out here? And like, I didn't go home from when I moved out here until Thanksgiving. I didn't go home. Like my parents were like, that's important for you to like stay out there because like if we let you come home so often, you're gonna want to come back. And so at the time, I was like, okay, weird that you can like still tell me what to do now that I'm like fully half a country away or like across the country. Like, but and like at the time I didn't get it, but like now that was like so smart of them because I agree. Like, I needed time out here to kind of like get in a routine, get established, as you were saying, and just like find like, I don't know, yeah, find it. I don't know, just yeah, for like always credit them for that because I feel like I would have just been so like if I knew back then how like I do now how easy it is to buy a flight and just go home, I would have been doing it all the
Right.
time. Once that first big girl paycheck hit, I would have been doing it all the time, and I'm so glad they told me not to, just to kind of find my footing out here.
Totally. And like, yeah, like it's fun to go home and visit, but like you need to like actually put down your roots, like actually like, yeah,
Yes,
just figure out like what your life is going to look like. Because like, if you're so scared about just like, or not scared, but like if you're trying to like go back to like this sense of comfort, like
mhm,
you have to have that uncomfortability to like grow.
exactly. I like needed to be forced out of my comfort zone a little bit, and I'm so glad that I have people in my life who help me do that.
For sure. Thinking about like the transition into today and like into, living in Brooklyn, how did like going with the flow like actually play into this?
Hmm. I think it is like a testament of like my friends and my coworkers, I think I do have a lot of people around me who are great examples of they go with the flow all the time and things always work out for them. And so I think that is super helpful just to have those people who like give me little reminders. Like if you don't like get everything done that you need to do in a day, the world will keep turning, like everything will still be okay. And for that, like I will always be so appreciative. Yeah, it seems to me like I can never convince myself of that, or like I can never realize it myself. And I am super blessed with friends who just know the right things to say to me, like at the right times, and where it's like, you can take a break. It's okay to take a sick day, even if you're not physically feeling sick. If you're burnt out, like it's okay. Like, and even if that doesn't like automatically translate to like going with the flow, like just not being like at your 100% level all the time. Like if I decided tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. I want to stay home from work, that's okay. You know,
Yeah.
it's just like on the more professional side of like going with the flow, that type of stuff is very important. And like, I feel like my parents are big advocates for that. Like even throughout college, I feel like I first started having kind of like mental health struggles, and they were big proponents of like, you can take a sick day, you can like, even if you're not feeling like physically sick, you can take a sick day, you can like say no to plans, you can like kind of like on the opposite side of like going with the flow, like you don't
Totally.
always need to be like doing stuff. But yeah, like moving to Brooklyn, starting my job at the Today Show, like I think I would still be kind of like that buttoned up college student if I didn't have the friends out here that I do. And even back home, like my friends are like, okay, girl, you've been doing a lot. Like you haven't texted us in a couple days. Like slow down a little bit, take some breaks as you need it. So yeah, I feel like I'm heavily reliant on those friends to just kind of get me through and help push me to be more go with the flow.
And so awesome to have a tribe like that that just like,
Yeah.
says what they need to say like when
Yeah.
you need it.
Yes, exactly.
Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about the industry because I feel like the media and journalism industry is super interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It seems very highly competitive, and you've mentioned just like things move fast. How did you really set yourself apart when you were like first starting out?
Yeah, I think what helped me a lot was kind of like that wide range of involvement and like my skill set in college that I had stacked my resume with. And like I was doing social media, I could write for a newspaper, I could write for a digital like online piece, but I also had like copy editing skills under my belt. So I think like that really helped me because I could apply to do a social media job. I could apply to do copywriting. I could apply for, the Gazette or like a magazine and all that stuff. So I feel like that helped me stand out a little bit. And even though my job now is just primarily focused on writing for a digital site, I'm touching so many different aspects of our team. Like I help write for the SEO team, I write for the broadcast team, I do news and trending stories. We're always pitching idea to our social team. So like being more well-rounded in terms of like my skill set really helped me stand apart because our team is so like, there's not one area of like our digital team that like everybody's always has their hands in everything. So it's like nobody has like tunnel vision on this one thing. Everybody's always working and like everybody's always up in each other's business.
For sure.
So I feel like that also helped like my now like managers be like, okay, this girl knows how to like handle lots of different things. That's why she'll make a great asset to our team.
For sure. And I think like especially early on, if you can be a generalist and
Yeah.
kind of like jack of all trades, Jill of all trades, and like,
Yeah.
touch social, touch editorial, touch like all the different things,
Yeah.
like, I mean, I feel like that's what like really helped me like early on. So it's interesting just like in that industry, like also just really applies.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What are some of the things that people might not know about the media industry? Do you have any like secrets to share?
I feel like I was really experiencing this when I was a reporter for the Gazette. I feel like you see in TV and like movies, and usually it is like those like crime based shows where like journalists are made out to be like the bad guys. But it's like just the same as like the fire department when they show up to a scene, or like the police department. Like we all have a job to do. And kind of like I was saying at the beginning, where it was like, we are the voice to the voiceless. Like we are trying to help people. Like, did a car crash happen? Okay, this highway is closed. There were no fatalities. here's all this other info. Like, we are there to also do a job. Like, we're not out to get people, I feel like. And I feel like that's kind of like a stereotype about journalists is like, especially like I cover e-commerce. I'm not inherently out to get anyone. There's none of that stereotyping in like my world. But like when I was reporting for the Gazette and doing a lot of kind of like the crime and courts reporting, that would be something that I would kind of like hear a lot that like my editor would get a lot. And it just kind of like opened up my eyes to a new side of journalism that I don't think a lot of people see unless like you're in it. And I hadn't seen until I was like really in it and doing it. But yeah, that's just like a different side that I was like, that's kind of like weird. Or like
No,
I
for
just wasn't
sure.
expecting it.
Totally. Okay, let's chat on like more things and how you've shifted like since you've entered your NYC era and all the
Mm-hmm.
things. How do you think living in New York has like really shaped you both personally and professionally?
I mean, it has pushed me out of my comfort zone so much. I don't think I would have tried like the amount of foods. I wouldn't have like gone I wouldn't have done half the things that I don't know. It there is no greater place that I would want to live at this age. And like when I moved here, I was single, 22, like just had my big girl paychecks. My rent was less than $1,000. I was and still am like living my best New York life. Like there's like I don't know, it truly is like for the people who want that, like it is the best place. Like you'll never be bored. You will never be bored. And if you are, that's on you. And it's just like I New York has shaped me so much. I don't think I already thought I was an extroverted person, but like I never hung out solo when I was like in college and stuff until I had moved out here. And now I'm like perfectly comfortable going to like a coffee shop and getting a coffee and reading by myself. Like, I feel like I've learned a lot about myself since moving to New York because I got pushed out of my comfort zone and just like learning how to make friends as an adult, learning how to like navigate working in like 30 Rock and like working with team with other adults, like just those experiences that you don't get when you're in college. But then also like I don't have a car anymore, navigating the subway systems, learning how to be like more safe and like just learning how to like navigate a city and like life where I don't have any family out here. Like really just kind of like learning how to take care of myself as an adult after being so dependent. Like I've the furthest I ever lived away from home was college. And if I decided Friday after class I wanted to be home for dinner, I could. So like just kind of being like, oh, you mean I can't go home and like do this? Like and like I've gotten better about like not telling like my parents or like not calling them every single time I need to like make a complaint, like figuring out how to like handle it maturely and like responsibly or just be like, okay, Sierra, like it's not an issue and stuff like that. So there's just so much that I've learned about myself since moving out here that I don't think I would have had I stayed in Cedar Rapids or like moved to Des Moines, like just figuring myself out. And yeah.
No, for sure. What did like building like your first like sense of community in New York look like? Like you mentioned, obviously like roommates are kind of a nice like built in, but like
Mhm.
outside of roommates, like what did it actually look like for you?
Yeah. So New York is like slowly becoming a hub for Iowa State grads, which is so much fun because they have a huge fashion program. It's like one of the best in the nation, I think. Like it's like top five. Apparel merchandising and design program is just really good. And a lot of graduates come here post grad. And I feel like there was a group of us who like all moved out here at the same time. And we were
Oh,
like,
that's fun.
I follow you, but I don't like know you, but let's all hang out. And so all my friends out here are Iowans. Like they're all Iowa
Oh, that's
Staters,
funny.
all Iowans, and like and then on top of that, like our wider friend group is like friends of those friends, whether it be like coworkers or like my boyfriend's friends or like everything like that. So it's like we have but like at its core it's all like Iowans, which is like it's so much fun because they just get it. Like they know what it's like when you say like, "Oh, I miss like driving with like the windows rolled down and just like getting Dairy Queen," and like they know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Like they know what you're talking about, but then they also know like they know like when you're homesick, they know how to comfort you and like they know what it means to like pack up and leave and like move out here, and like we all spend Thanksgiving together, like
Oh, that's
we
fun.
all like we all they just get it. So
Yeah,
for I will forever be grateful because I don't know what I would do without them.
totally. What do you think the most surprising thing about working in media and working in New York has been for you?
Mhm. I think I didn't expect how wide of like a I don't know if impact is the right word, but like just kind of like the platform that my articles are on is just touching so many different, like everybody can see that. And I guess I don't think like working at the Gazette or like at my college publications, I realized that. Like I saw it kind of like on a regional scale, I guess. But the thing that was most surprising was like people can email me and they'd be from Arizona or they'd be from Missouri, or and I'm just like, I like just wrote this in a day and posted it on like published it online. And like the fact that so many people can see it, and like on the other side of that coin, like when I write a broadcast article, like there are people watching that on every single coast. Like I'll have like my grandparents texting me, but then I'll also have like friends from high school texting me about it. Like think that was the most surprising thing that like I had to come to terms with, was it was like everybody is like, I always put a lot of like time and care into my work, but like this is on such a larger scale than like your college publications were, or like even the Gazette was. So it's just like, oh, this is going to be online forever. Like everybody can see this. And it's not just like everybody that you follow on Instagram. It's
Everyone.
anybody with an internet connection can see this.
Yeah.
So I think that was just super surprising at first, just seeing like I had mentioned, like all those different numbers like trickle in after like my first like broadcast article, and just being like, oh, that's more people than I think I can fathom. Like that's just a surprising number.
Like, how many people like read, or what was the number that like really like, that's crazy.
Yeah. I think I took a screenshot of it, but we did like a sneaker awards article. Yeah, we had like a sneaker awards segment, and I think at one point, or I checked it like at the end of the day to see like the history, and there was like over 200,000 people that had visited the article during the day,
Wow.
and I was like, that is insane.
Wait,
Like,
that day?
yeah,
Oh my
like from
God.
like from the like I think it had aired at like 9 a.m. or like it was in like the 9 o'clock hour. So like they usually air at like 9:40 ish. Our commerce segments too. And then I had checked it, but right before I had left work at 5. So like in like a 7.5, 8 hour time span, it had gotten that many people, and I was just like, that is insane.
That's crazy.
Yeah, yeah,
Or even just like randomly, like I was looking up like some gift guides like this last
yeah.
Christmas, and like
That's our bread
it
and
was
butter.
it was like, oh my God, wait, like
I know her.
I know her.
Yeah, no, those are our bread and butter. Like everybody in my like, and that's one of like my favorite things in our job is like the gift guides, because I'm like, oh, it's like you get to play Santa for like this random niche
Right.
subject. It's fun, but yeah, those are our bread and butter from like August to December. I'm always on the gift guide, so you
No,
need
for
any rec,
sure.
hit a girl up.
Have you had any like pinch me like New York moments? Like obviously like working for today we've talked about, but just like being in the
Yes.
city, is there anything like not work related?
Yes, there's a couple celebrity sightings where I'm like, some of them have, a lot of them happen like at work, but like you have to keep like, you're like, okay, I'm at work. They're also like working.
Right.
Like we sit on the same floor as the Kelly Clarkson show and the Tonight Show,
Mm-hmm.
and we like share bathrooms with the Kelly Clarkson like green rooms. So there'll be a couple sightings where you're like, okay, I can't, I just have to like soft smile at them and like walk away. But then like I go back over to like where I'm sitting and like, oh my God, guys, like you'll never believe like who I saw. But just like pinch me moments in New York, I feel like I always like am so grateful for New York, or like so grateful in the fact that like I moved here when it's like that first nice day, and like
Mm.
you're either in Central Park or at a happy hour on an outside patio, or like I don't know, I have like a couple like favorite buildings, and like when I like see them in like a certain sunlight, I'm like, why would I ever move? Like why? Like it's just those moments where I'm like, what? Like I did this, and like I made, like those are my like pinch me moments. Like it's not like a specific like, oh, I saw this celebrity on the street, or like I saw this really cute proposal in Central Park, but like it's those moments where it's those like TikTok videos that you see where
Yeah.
it's like, this is summer in New York. And I'm like, this is a random June day for me. And like, those are my pinch me moments. Or like every single day on the subway before I go to work, this is going to sound like so freaking cheesy. But I need to I'll grab the photo because it'll make like more sense. But I have this photo that my sister gave to me for like graduation. My sister had given it to me for graduation. And it's us, like, the first time we took the ferry. I don't know if you can see
Oh
it.
my gosh.
We're, like, Statue of Liberty. And on my subway ride to work, there's 2 subway stops that are above ground. And you can see the Statue of Liberty for, like, 5 seconds, 5 or 10 seconds at, like, one of them. So, like, every single day when I ride that line, I have to, like, I'm like, you have to look at the Statue of Liberty just to, like, that was so magical to you, like, at that time. Like, she still is. Like, I don't know, I'm just like, I
Right.
always like mentally wave to the Statue of Liberty still, just to, because like New York, it will like chew you up and spit you out. So like I need to have like those little things of like, oh, it is magical here. Like, you can have those pinch me moments in like the most mundane things, like looking at the Statue of Liberty and remembering that 9-year-old who was so like enamored by her that she wanted to move here. So like, it's not like one pinch me moment per se, but like
The
just all
living
the,
in like you did this. Like you did
yeah,
this and like it
yeah,
was always a
yes,
dream and like you made it happen and now it's your
yeah.
every day you get to enjoy this.
And like, I have friends who like send me those TikToks that are like, this is Christmas time in New York. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a random Friday night for me. And like, just being like, oh, that is like my normal. Like, that's a pinch me moment in itself. Like, if you would have told like college me that would have been enough. Like, that I wouldn't have believed you. My friends and I always say where it's like, you will have your lowest lows here, but yet your highest highs. Like, New
Totally.
York loves to test you. Like, you have to want to move out here. Like, there are days when I want to buy a one-way ticket home, and then I'm like, no, like,
No.
you still live out here. It's not New York's fault. Like, all this stuff, but like, that's not, yeah, you will have your lowest lows here. Is like, I'm not afraid to admit I've cried on the subway before, and nobody does a double take.
Yeah.
Like, it's normal here. It's a rite of passage. Like, it will
No, for sure.
truly chew you up and spit you out.
So as we're like starting to just think about like everything that's happened in your New York era career and like also just like moving forward, what does going with the flow look like for you now? Like as you think about directionally where you want to go, how do you like keep a vision but also like be open to just like whatever is coming your way?
Yeah, I think I've learned not to like tie myself like to an idea of something, like, and like telling myself it will be okay. Like, it is as simple as that, but like these next 2 weeks for me are super busy, both like work wise and like socially, like post work wise, and telling myself like, okay, don't get so hung up on the fact that like you might not make it to the gym. Like, that's okay if you need to take a day off from the gym. And like, I can get really in my head about those types of things. So just like telling myself like, okay, it's okay if you go to a happy hour with friends and skip this other obligation, or like, not obligation, but like other
Yeah.
plans with people and stuff like that. But I think kind of like not being so strict with myself helps me be more go with the flow, which is something that like I'm actively working on, is like trying to be better about convincing myself that it is okay. Like, oh, it's okay if you don't make it to the gym tonight. You still have 4 other days this week that you can go. Like,
Right.
you're totally fine, girl. So just like being more gentle with myself and like being more kind with myself in the way that like I talk to myself has been helping me like a lot. And I've been putting it into practice this year so far because I have had such like a jam-packed schedule, but just like, yeah, really convincing myself that it's going to be okay, and not being like so tied to my schedule where if something doesn't happen, I'm like actually getting upset about it. Like, I feel like that's what I used to do, where it was like, if I didn't, like, if I told myself, okay, you're going to go to the gym today and I didn't make it, I would get so upset with myself just because I didn't make it to the plans I'd committed for myself. But slowly working towards, it's okay. Like, you're fine. Like, nothing's
Right.
wrong. Anything like that. Yeah, just kind of like slowly but surely convincing myself that it's still going to be okay, even if your plans don't go as you had originally intended.
Totally. Ignoring going with the flow for a little bit. But where do you want to go from here? Where do you see yourself growing, like personally, professionally? Do you think that you're going to stay in New York for a bit? I know that it's like amazing in your 20s. Do you want to stay in New York forever though? What's next for Sierra?
Yeah. So professionally, I really do like my job right now. I just had like a one-on-one with my editor, and my job this next year looks really promising. It looks really good for me. So I feel like I'm going to stay in my job. If I had to look like 5 years down the line, I would love to have a more like editor type and not writing as much anymore. I feel like this is going to be like, duh, makes sense. You're type A, but like, I love the nitty gritty part of it. Like, I love editing stuff for like grammar mistakes or like editing stuff otherwise. So I kind of want to have an editor role like next steps after I'm done like at today. Maybe it's an editor role at a magazine, editor role at a newspaper, editor role elsewhere. I feel like when I'm done with today, that's kind of like the next steps professionally that I want to take. I always tell myself I'm not having kids in New York. I don't want to raise New York children.
That would be crazy
Because,
also for anyone that tries to do that. I'm just like, I
yeah,
couldn't imagine.
I
Like,
just see like elementary school kids ride the subway by themselves to school, and I'm like, I'm nervous walking from Wilson to my house, and I lived on the same street.
my God.
I literally lived on the same street, and I was like, Mom, I need a cell phone. Like, I need to be able to tell you when I get home. But like, I don't think and I'm just like, I want my future children to have like the same life I did, like a big backyard, like, I don't know, just everything like that, and not worry about if they're going to get like mugged on the subway.
Right.
But so, I don't know, I always flirt with the idea of moving back to the Midwest just because I do go home somewhat often. And like I said, I would love to just if I decided Friday after work I wanted to be home and sleep in my like childhood bedroom, I could. I think I miss that aspect a lot, but also like sometimes I do get that little like twinge of FOMO where it's like, oh, like all my cousins at Thanksgiving like made TikToks, and I was like, oh, that would have been so much fun. Like, but yeah, I feel like a move to the Midwest is in the like near future. Like, I would say I probably only have like a couple more years of New York in me left, just because like financially also I don't think it would be very wise for me to stay out here, and like I'm currently in a long distance relationship, and like I want to be in the Midwest, and so that just like makes sense
For sure.
for us anyways. So yeah, I want to and he's very understanding. I moved out here for a reason. I would be kind of like resentful if I moved back sooner than I would want
Yeah.
to. So I always tell myself like I just need to get New York out of my system, and then after that I'm good. So I feel like, I'm in my mid-20s now, but I feel like a couple more years of New York left in me, and then I did it. Like, I
Totally.
don't know, like, I'll have those pictures that my children will someday look back on and be like, oh, this is when Mom lived in New York, and that will be more than plenty for me.
For sure. I mean, like, New York is just one of those cities where it's like, I mean, there are people that obviously do it forever, but like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm okay with not being one of them.
No, totally. Sierra, thank you so much for joining us today. Like, I feel like I learned so much, like, and I really hope that the audience at home also like gets a lot out of this, because I think like, whether people are like considering like a career in media or like a move to New York, or just like, I think even just like are doubting like, should I go with the flow, or like, plan my way into whatever scenario.
Yeah.
Like, I think there's
it's a work in progress. It's a work in progress.
For all of us type A's, like, I mean, I think it's all a work in progress. But seriously, thank you so much for joining today. This was so great.
Of course.
Thank you to our guest, Sierra Hoeger, for being a part of this week's episode. And thank you for listening to I Don't Know About You. I Don't Know About You is edited, written, and produced by me, Kyle Cuzymore, and music by Chris Samparisi. You can get new episodes each Tuesday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever else you get your podcasts. You can follow along for updates on Instagram, TikTok, and IDon'tKnowAboutYou.com. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.